And welcome to the EV's Owners Lounge. And with me today is Emer Barry from SEAI. Um,
Yes.
and I'm Mark Miller, the CEO of Mobile Array EV, an Airbnb-inspired shared peer-to-peer charging platform, which operates both in the UK and in Ireland. Emma, sorry. It's very easy to slip into that. Sorry.
No problem.
Can you just quickly introduce yourself and tell everybody what it is that you do?
Yeah, so my name is Emer Barry, and I work for the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, which is Ireland's national energy authority. I suppose, the organisation itself is potentially similar to the Energy Savings Trust in the UK and similar kind of guys. We provide support to businesses, to consumers, homeowners, and to government. Basically, we're trying to decarbonise the energy sector and make everyone energy efficient. So that's through grants for homeowners to upgrade their homes. We provide policy and statistics on energy use in Ireland. And then my side of the house is looking after the electric vehicles program and decarbonisation of transport. So that is in the form of grants for electric vehicles, and then other supports. We do an EV dealership awards. We completed an EV fleet trial for companies last year. So lots going on within SCAI.
Mm. So what incentives are there? Is there a
Yeah.
home charger grant still?
So several incentives. So if you're purchasing a car, there's a grant if you're buying a private car of €3,500. There's also a grant then for the purchase of an electric van. Depending on the size, it's either 3,800 or 7,600. So substantial funds there. And then we also have a home charger grant. So that is €300 towards the cost of it. I suppose to say that the grant, there's also a grant to look at apartments, which are a challenge when you don't have your own driveway, and then also multi-unit dwelling. So basically, anyone who's not that does not have their own driveway, we're trying to support in another way.
I keep being told that Ireland is a nation of driveways, though. So there's still, but still, there
Mm,
is a percentage clearly that
yeah,
don't. So
I think
we,
the census had about 80% of people have a driveway, but increasingly, newer developments from a space perspective don't have dedicated off-street parking. And then those obviously in apartments, which are becoming more prevalent. Ireland was a great country for everyone. As they built houses, they had their own driveway, but not so much anymore.
yeah, we were talking about the newer parts of Dublin and them
Mm,
being apartment blocks rather than houses. So,
yeah.
and that's actually where mobile array EV and other shared charging platforms come in because if there are houses or even car parking spots. So one of the things that we're looking to do is to help housing associations share out their not just to the tenants or the people that the residents, but in their closed parking spaces, but actually also to give the public access to those charging stations that are increasingly coming into apartment blocks.
Mm.
Obviously, there are others that operate a similar kind of thing. So, and we were talking earlier about the what's it called again?
The
Shared
shared charger scheme.
yeah pilot
Yeah.
scheme. Yeah.
So that's just launched. So it's really a kind of similar to what you do in Airbnb for your charger. It's been run by ZEVI, the Zero Emission Vehicles Office in Ireland, which are part of our Department of Transport. So we're currently, I think they're looking for people to volunteer to be part of it. And it's really that kind of idea of those people that don't have off-street parking, but maybe someone down the road does. Could they share a charger and find a way to fund it? That's kind of the concept behind it. Given your charging asset, I drive an electric vehicle, as does my husband. We might charge between us twice, three times a week. So therefore, our charger's sitting there doing nothing the rest of the time. So
Yeah,
it's just the
and
asset, I suppose.
actually, what we've started to see because the ranges of EVs are getting bigger and bigger. So I think last time I was there, we did some calculations about some of the more top end ones, 400, 500, 600 kilometers range. You can go
Mm,
from the south of Ireland to all the way to the north on one charge and then halfway back.
yeah.
And So and this has started to come relevant here in the UK as well, where I'm sitting at the moment,
Mm.
in that destination charging. So people that don't want to stop off at a motorway service or a ultra rapid charger that typically you're paying a premium for. It's kind of like stopping at a motorway services and paying a premium for your diesel and petrol because you're at a motorway service. So people look for chargers where at their destination, whether it's a hotel, a restaurant, a pub, some place that they can put their car for a number of hours, or what they call lifestyle charge. So there's a number of bloggers, YouTubers that kind of say why go out of your way to sit in your car and charge? Why not just plug it in while you're having a meal, or you're going to watch a football match, or you're going to watch the rugby or something? Why just charge as you do your life, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. And I suppose there's another scheme that's currently active, and charges are about to start being installed on a shared island sports club scheme, which includes the north and the south of Ireland together. So it's sports clubs. There's about 200 sports clubs all over Ireland that will be getting charges supported by the Zero Emission Vehicles Ireland office.
yeah,
So it means then whilst you're at a match, you've an hour there, an hour and a half, maybe you're charging if you need to while you're there. So I think generally they're looking, I suppose it's not high power charging that we're looking to put in there. It's more the 22 kilowatts up to 50 kilowatt, really. It's
yeah.
not the really fast ones that are needed. And sports clubs get used between golf. Imagine how long it takes you to play around a golf, as opposed to watching a football match.
Yeah.
So, there is that option there as well. Those,
Yeah, it's
that,
interesting because I had a long conversation with I can't remember, there was an association that works with gardening centers, and gardening centers, a lot of them have this concept of being a destination garden center. So they have like a coffee shop, a playground, things that keep people there
mm,
longer, right? So and it almost fits hand in glove with this idea of plugging in at lower rate charges that are because they're there for a period of time rather than a quick shop and buy your flowers. It's a destination.
mm,
That seems to be the way that they're going from a retail perspective, irrespective of EVs. So
mm, yeah.
those kind of destinations is definitely something. I remember going to. Don't ask me why, but I went to a game at Leicester, a football game, and I think I took my father-in-law, and they were playing CS:GO Moscow, and almost because it's in a kind of semi-residential area, almost all of the residential houses, which were mostly terraced housing, a lot of them had made their backyards available for parking. So there was this kind of match day alternative parking, and if you're going to do that, why not have a match day alternative parking and charging? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so there is that idea as well. So
But on the other side of that, I suppose 90% of charging gets done at home on your own charger at nighttime. So if you are one of those people that have their charging, given, as you say, the range of vehicles is, can be up to 600 kilometers within Ireland, you know, who does that much driving in a day? Again, Ireland being a smaller country than the UK, it's only so far wide and so far high, so that you
yeah,
generally are going to get home. The vast majority of people, I think, very much overestimate how much they drive
yeah, no, I
as
think
well.
it's the peace of mind of if I need to go and drive to my
Yeah,
relative here,
yeah,
or do a
there.
business trip. So yesterday I had to go to Birmingham, which I didn't find out until the day before. So not that it's that far, but still, I think it's that peace of mind of being able to.
Knowing it's there for when you need it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
and I suppose that's part of the work that's ongoing is under the alternative fuels infrastructure regulation. We are putting chargers every 60 kilometers on the motorways. There's now a call gone out for charging on the national routeway, so the smaller roads. So all of those, I'd say in the next 2 years, you're going to see a lot more charging
it
around
seems like
Ireland.
the government there, which I guess you're part of, right?
Yes. Yep.
is doing a lot more for the electrification, the transition than I think the early days there was some a lot of the grants that you were talking about earlier existed in
Hmm.
the UK. They've
Yeah.
long since disappeared, right?
Yeah.
Now it's more stick, and you need
Yeah.
to have 22%. I don't know what it is this year. 22% last year.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is this year that you have to do in terms of sales. So how
Yeah.
are you using a stick as well, or is it just all carrot?
It's mainly carrot. I mean, the other side of it is EVs are cheaper to run. They make more sense. There's also a lot more choice out there than there was. I mean, I'm the last 4 years working on this program, and the choice in vehicles has exploded in that 4 years. So that makes a massive difference. That it's not just really big, expensive cars, and the prices have started to come down. We see most people buying in the 40 to 45,000 euro bracket, where it used to be 55 to 60. Now we have changed the grants over the years. It was 5,000 euros for a car. It's come down to 3.5. Any car over the value of 60,000 euros, we won't grant aid. So, it is trying to encourage people to buy those smaller vehicles. And the fact that there's more of them now available on the market makes it easier. So, grants have reduced and changed, but they haven't changed in the last 2 years. I still think, given the targets we have to reach, we still need some form of support. Again, it all comes down to budget, and it's the same budget that you're looking at for charging as you're looking at for vehicles, so it has to balance in some way.
Mm.
And obviously on the vehicle side, we do need, or sorry, on the charging side, we do need to support the industry to get there, because you need chargers sometimes in places that aren't really commercially viable, but they should really be there. And that kind of off-street parking for people in terraced houses, etc. That's kind of, we're looking to work with the local authorities to do that, as well. So that the cheapest way is obviously back to your own meter box and paying a
Do
low
you, do you
rate.
have so to here there's kind of this net zero targets are too expensive and we should do away with them kind of mantra that's Trumpian type which is being repeated by many people here as well.
Mm.
Do you have any of that going on there, or is it all
Look,
sensible?
you're always going to have climate deniers, but there is a climate action plan in place in this country since 2019. I think the first climate action plan was written, and it kind of transcends, and it's bipartisan, for want of a better word. We've many political parties in Ireland, but everyone agrees. And in the last election, everyone agreed climate action is a massive issue, and
Mm.
what needs to be done has to be done across the board. Um, there, so I suppose you will always get the naysayers of climate change isn't happening. Why do we need to do this? So but I don't see it coming in. We have SAI as an organisation has a massive remit to work in this area of decarbonising of energy. Transport's part of that. So our
I mean, I think
organisation has just grown in the last two
what,
years.
what people don't realize is that it also generates a whole lot of jobs and wealth
Yeah, yeah,
and industry, which has got a longer term uh, benefit and longevity for people in
yeah,
general, right? So
yeah,
it's not just a cost sink; it's also a opportunity develop,
yeah.
creation. So
Yeah, because you've the need for electrician, or for, well, I suppose, a huge amount of electricians need to be upskilled. When you look at solar and charging infrastructure and heat pumps and how they all work together, that's a massive upskilling for some electricians. You look at then at the what you need to service these vehicles. You need to train up the mechanics so that they can work on electric vehicles safely. There was a talk. I was at a workshop yesterday, with one of the training bodies who were looking at, do we need a specific course for this, to make sure that these mechanics are fully trained, know how to look after EV, can do it all within Ireland, and there isn't this weeks and weeks wait if something goes wrong with one of the cells in your vehicle, that it can be fixed. So all that has to happen as well. And the other side, I suppose, from Ireland's perspective, in the Midlands, we have a lot of bogland, which would have had people cutting turf. So we want to leave the turf there. So it is really that just transition to reskill and retrain these people that would have worked in that area, so that that no one gets left behind in this transition. That everyone should be brought along. Some people need more help than others, so it's just being just and fair about how we do it and having some social inclusion.
it sounds a lot better than what it is here. Um,
I make it sound good. There are challenges. Don't get me wrong, but we are working with those. We are working on those challenges.
yeah. I mean, the last couple of sessions that we've had is I had Jill Noel from EVA England, Matt Seeley's equivalent in the
Yeah.
UK, and we were talking about how some of the legacy manufacturers, and I call them legacy, but there are some ones that are doing it quite well, like Kia, and I think Volkswagen is starting to get there. But they also have challenges, and I think BMW, Mercedes, which are always been high end, are still creating EVs above 60,000, right? The number that you mentioned, and it doesn't really promote the mass adoption of EVs if that's the only vehicles you have. So
Yeah.
the ID.1 or the a smaller Golf, slightly Polo type vehicle that isn't funky, isn't it's basically the boring Golf Polo make that is mass bought by many people, but also some of the Chinese entrants are coming in with smaller and smaller vehicles that I think ultimately will make a big difference. I saw a Chinese manufacturer called Skywell, and sometimes you see these startups or these new ones and you think, where the hell have they come from? But Skywell has actually been running electric buses in China and Asia for quite a long time, which is actually the same background that BYD has, because they also came from electric buses. BYD was actually running electric buses in NASA over a decade ago, and that's their background. So they know a lot about electric batteries and the powertrain that those vehicles need. And that vehicle was a mid-sized SUV that probably should have cost 50,000-60,000, but actually was 30,000.
Yeah.
So I don't know if how many Chinese entrants you're getting there. I know.
Yeah, we have some. Yeah, Xpeng's just arrived, or Shapeng, whichever way you want to call it. BYD, MG obviously is a former UK British brand, but is now a Chinese brand.
Chinese, yeah.
There's a few have come into the market in the last while. I suppose not all the vehicles that you get in the UK make their way over to Ireland all the time. And I suppose the challenge again for it's the UK and Ireland is the right hand drive, and we're kind of the last ones on the line for the right hand drive ones. And cars generally are spec'd much better in the UK, which is why Irish people look to import them. And obviously, importing a car has gone up in price in the post-Brexit era. The duties and that have to be paid, so it's not as cheap as it used to be to do it. So look, there is a challenge, I suppose. But the other side of that then really is, it's changing every ICE car on the road to an EV is not the answer either. And it's really thinking of how do we travel. Why, like you and I talking to each other today, I'm in Dublin, you're in the UK. There's no need for us to be in a studio together in one place. So it is that avoid, shift, improve mantra that we are also looking at within the Irish Climate Action Plan to reduce the travel we need to do, to increase the use of public transportation. And public transport is improving. It is taking time, but it is improving. Within Dublin, it's improved hugely. When you kind of go outside the cities, there is a bigger challenge in the rural areas. And then also to get away from the idea that everyone has to own their own car. Not everyone has to own their own car. It depends on the stage of your life. Do you need a car or not? So it is also a challenge from that perspective. And looking at shared mobility and how that might work is something that we're looking at as well at the moment. Having mobility hubs, having shared cars, finding groups of people, potentially those that are potentially in what you might say is transport poverty, that can't afford a car but might need one, that we can provide a solution to them at the pay per hour, and to do some trials with different groups. So there's other solutions out there that doesn't require everybody to have a car, and to try and reduce it. So that's definitely something we're looking at and working on, is how do we, as I say, replacing every car with another car is not going to be it. There's about 2.8 million cars on the road in Ireland, which is quite small when you probably look at UK numbers. And of that, 160,000 are electric. That includes plug-in hybrids. So we have a ways to go yet, and ICE cars are going to be on the road for the foreseeable. Like you talk.
I mean, what is your view on replacing an old ICE car? So if we put it that way, so
Depends how old.
I have an old BMW diesel. I call it the horse tractor
Hmm.
because we only use it for horses. We drive it locally to the
Yeah.
horses. It pulls our horse carriage and so on, and it smells and stinks of horses,
Hmm.
and that's all it's used for, right? But
Yeah.
should I replace it for an EV?
You
Uh,
see, that's it. It's really is a question of the carbon within it and the energy it used to produce that vehicle. And if you're only using it for that specific purpose, and it might be a challenge to get an EV that would do it for that purpose as well. Once you start towing things on an EV, there can be challenges around that, and I'm open to correction on that. But you know, look, I suppose if you look at if you scrap a vehicle, if it's a 10-year-old vehicle, a 10-year-old vehicle is still fairly decent car. Definitely in Ireland, I think with the MOT, we've the NCT in Ireland. And I remember when I was a kid, there was cars on the road that were literally bangers. They were rusting, they were falling apart. They had to be off the road. And when the national car test came in, I can't even remember how long ago it is, but I do remember it starting. That got rid of a lot of those cars, and we had scrapper schemes to get rid of them. And scrapper schemes bring their own challenges. But I suppose if you have a car that's working still, some people are going to drive them into the ground. People come talk to me at events and say, I drive a diesel, I'm really sorry, and apologize to me for driving that car. And I said, but that's what you have, and that's where you're at right now. You want to change, that's fine. Like, we only use it when we have to do this and this. We don't use it, we take public transport. And that's what you want people to do. You want them to take public transport. If they can change their car to an EV, do. But again, you do have to look at if the car's only 10 years old and it's actually really in good nick and it's looked after and all that, is it a waste to get rid of it then, or do you wait another 5, 10 years
yeah.
and then get rid of it? So yeah, it really has to, you have to weigh up what you use it for and how often you use it and what your other modes of transport are. It is a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, so this one I think is 12 years old and
Mm,
have every intentions of driving it into the ground.
great.
It's been to Estonia and Russia at least 3 or 4 times, so it's got plenty of mileage on the clock as well.
Yeah,
So,
that's just
but by the way, in terms of EVs pulling,
mm,
essentially is about 2.5 tons. There are plenty of EVs that pull two and a half.
isn't it?
So, and but
And what does it do to the range, I suppose, is the question.
yeah, of course it does. Yes,
Yeah, they can do it, but then it depends. Is it going to really destroy your range just
yeah,
for
but
that journey?
I mean, generally people don't take their horses a long way, so
Mm,
to the vet or to
yeah,
a local tournament or something like that.
yeah.
But the I would be very reluctant to get even a second-hand EV and spoil it with the horse smell and dirt and mud.
Well,
It would have to be. So that's the other reason is it's like you're getting another car to do a transition, but
mm,
then you're going to spoil it with all the dirt and mud and smell
yeah.
because it whatever you do, it doesn't stay outside of the car, unfortunately.
I'll take your word for it.
So, well, we have 3 horses. That's why it's probably more smelly and dirty than it should be. But um, in terms of the charging infrastructure, you mentioned
Mm,
that you're doing something on the national roadway and elsewhere, and I think you have Ionity there.
yep.
Um, and Instabolt is also there, right?
Yeah, and Tesla as well.
Tesla, yes,
Yeah,
okay,
we
okay.
have some Tesla chargers, yeah.
I'm
So
sure that.
we've about 2,100 chargers around the country of
Mm.
different types. And they're like, I don't know if you had them free charging in the UK at one point when EVs first came out.
Used to,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, we also used to, but overstay was the challenge. So then yeah, I suppose it was really just an incentive to get people into EVs that, if you're charging the public network, it's free. So there is now a cost for it. And there's more and more players coming into the market. So the likes of Apple Green and Maxwell, the petrol suppliers are now putting in their own chargers. And they see the
Yeah,
value in it.
yeah.
People stay longer at your petrol station if they're charging for 20, 30 minutes and have spend money in your shop and use your facilities.
It's
So,
funny because I've seen Apple Green in kind of more rural areas here,
mm,
and actually they do a really good job on signage for charging, which
mm,
the majority here do not. Unlike in the EU, we do not have this directive to go and put signage of charging. I know that's something that's come in under.
Yep.
It's a
Yeah.
real shame that it hasn't arrived here, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the public are not aware. When you see a petrol station, right, you kind of get signage for it, even on the motorway, even not on the motorway, and obviously they have big signage, in supermarkets and elsewhere, and you can know that it's there. When you have a charger sitting in the corner of a council car park, right, you don't necessarily know that it's there because there's no signage pointing it out. So people go around thinking, well, the charging infrastructure is not ready yet. The charging infrastructure, I don't know how many times I've heard that. Charging infrastructure is not ready yet. When they don't realize that actually, where I'm sitting right now, there's a hotel just maybe 5 minutes walk. And there's a whole Tesla bank there. There's a whole Tesla charging hub there. But would you know that it's there?
Yeah, that's
Absolutely
your
not.
look. Yeah.
It's behind a wall. You would never know that it's there.
Yeah.
Would you expect it to be part of a hotel? No, but that's where it is. It's very
Yeah.
actually quite a few. It's a relatively big Tesla hub, and so it's really annoying that the signage is not here, at least in the UK. But it's
Yeah, I suppose the requirement in Ireland in Ireland at the moment under the AFA regulations is that you display the cost per cent or per kilowatt hour down to the litre. Like, so it's kind of the cost per 100 kilometers depending on the type. So it shows that there's about a 7 cent difference between petrol, diesel, and electric at the moment, and that's taking into account the cost of home charging as well. So it is looking at that figure. Given we know, I think we've a fairly conservative figure of 80% at home. I think the real figure is nearer to 90%. So yeah, it is good to see now. It needs to be displayed in the petrol stations around the country as well. So it does give you that. I suppose it's more of an education piece. If you're sitting there filling up your car, going, "Ooh, I could do this much cheaper if I had an electric car." Is
so
kind of the idea behind it.
I think in November of last year, and actually it was announced the year before in 23. They basically made all the charging point operators operate at a certain reliability and provide support. So it has to be, these because a lot of people were expressing range anxiety because they got to these advertised public charging points and they weren't working, or they weren't taking the payment system, or they weren't working with the RFID card, or whatever it was. And so the government actually put in place a whole load of raft of things that basically compelled the CPOs to provide, highly reliable, with support mechanisms, which invariably meant that there was potentially more cost on the CPOs. And the goal of it was to reassure the public that when they went to these charging points, that 9 times or 99 times out of the 100, it was working. Is that something that you've had issues with, or you're thinking about, or?
Yeah, I suppose it's gone from range anxiety to charger anxiety. I suppose more so, is the charger going to be working when I get there? So it is an issue, I suppose, as those more so when you look at the forecourt providers that have charging. Some of them say, "Oh, our staff are there to help you." They're 24/7. There's always somebody around at the petrol station if you're stuck. It is a challenge. I think they're more and more reliable than they were. And there is a requirement for, I think, again, under AFER, and I'm open to correction, but that we have a full map of Ireland and its chargers and their cost and their status. So that is something that is in progress. Again, it's probably not the easy thing to do this. And if you kind of look at stuff online, every other few weeks there's a new charging bank coming online. So the challenge of having them up and running, I don't know if there is a requirement for them to be 99% reliable. I do think they use it as a selling point, some of the charge point operators, that they are reliable, because it is that thing you get there and it's not working. Now, I rarely use the public network. The times I have used it, I've had no issue. I have a few apps, but the tap and go makes life so much easier. And I think it used to be €30 of a pre-authorization they took. Some of them have changed that down to €1. So they're not holding all your money while you're waiting to charge and then giving it back to you. So yeah, it is. I do think charger anxiety has become a thing.
Yeah,
range.
when I say range anxiety, I think it means the same thing
Same
as your
thing, yeah.
charger anxiety, because
Mm.
people get to this charger
And it's not working. And
not
it's like, what do I
working,
do?
then they
Yeah.
have to go find something else, which then they have to queue, and they go, oh, my range is getting shorter and shorter. That's what I mean by range
Yeah,
anxiety.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
Because
actually caused by the chargers not working or
yeah,
being queued, right? So,
yeah.
and I'm still running a survey on which I do annually. I need to close it actually. On what the charging infrastructure state is in the UK and Ireland, and actually elsewhere. It's been quite international. I had a lot of people from Canada and US taking part previously, and it was just it was remarkable, because I also did face-to-face interviews with people that were charging at the Rugby motorway services here, which
Mm,
is not far from me. And the first year I went there, there was a lot of this, which is 22. There was a lot of people complaining about not working or having to queue actually, and there's no queuing system at public charging points, right? So
mm.
they actually created one of their own. There was a self-made queuing system,
Yeah,
which some people didn't realize there was a queuing system, so went straight in front, much to the annoyance of people that were trying to follow the queuing system.
yeah,
And but there's obviously a lot more EVs and vehicles with the chargers at the time in 22. Now there is so much more that the queuing is not really a thing anymore. I
yeah,
mean, it is in certain places and times, but the most complaints that we get is people complaining that they bought EVs kind of paying full price for it new, and now it's depreciated so badly that and the answer is, go lease it, go buy a second-hand one. Second-hand one, as Derek will tell you, is a really, really good bargain, right?
mm,
Whether
yeah,
you're in Ireland or in the UK. So that's
yeah,
what people should do. But and the reality is, if you buy a £70,000 car, with, I think the one of them was like an Audi Q something, right? Um, when as soon as you drive it off, it's going to lose value. So it
yeah,
doesn't matter whether it's electric or not; it's
yeah.
going to depreciate. And I think
Yeah,
that's what a lot of people were complaining about. So
yeah, that's been an issue here, and I suppose I wrote a piece about it back in 2023 when the prices dropped the second half of 2023. Now I bought a new car for the first time in my life in 2023. It was a really good deal. I got an ID3, which is a fantastic car, still brand agnostic, but it is a great car for what it does. But it dropped by 10 grand. The sales were gone down significantly. The price had gone down significantly from when I purchased it. Now, it is what it is. Now, I bought it on a PCP, which means I do have a guaranteed price for it, which is fine. But, you know, it was my first time. I'm over 20 years driving. It's my first time buying a brand new car. It's not something I think I might do again. But at the time, it was worth it because I needed a better range vehicle. So, um, it is that risk. Any car you buy brand new, petrol, diesel, EV, it's going to depreciate as soon as you drive it off. I think it was just the significant drop that happened because the new ones were dropping in price.
yeah,
Therefore, you were like, well, why would I buy a second hand? I can get a new one for a decent price as well.
yeah,
But there is really good value to be had at the moment in second hand EVs in Ireland. So if you are in the market for an EV, now is the time to buy a used EV.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I would, for anybody listening, I've talked to a number of second-hand EV specialists, right? And this idea that battery technology or other things are going to change and you should wait, or there's some other technology that's coming along that's going to shorten the charge time, double the range. I think you're waiting for the wrong thing, right?
Yeah,
It's not that's not it's kind of like yeah that's not going to happen very fast or very quick, and I don't think it's worth waiting for. I personally am in the market for an EV9, because I have dogs, cats, and parents-in-law, so I need a bigger car,
hmm,
and I'm waiting for it to
come,
become more second-hand,
yeah.
shall we say, because it's relatively new.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It depends what your driving needs are, what kind of car you need. I mean, there's always going to be someone in the market for a smaller car that needs it as a runaround. There is always that. Like the first electric vehicle I bought, which was a Nissan Leaf, the first gen,
Uh,
I bought it secondhand. It's still going. I've seen it around my local area. I mean, it does about 100 kilometers
yeah.
in a charge. But if you're only going around 20,
Everybody that buys that or has bought that first generation seems to love it. I don't know why, but
They're great
Uh,
little cars. They are.
and just so we're near the end, Emer. So is there anything that you want to have people help you with, or you want to shout out for before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I suppose it's just interesting to learn what goes on in other countries. It's I suppose the removal of the grant in the UK, and the changes that caused. I do think there's one thing I would, I suppose, think about, and looking at decarbonised zones. There's obviously decarbonised cities in the UK. That last mile delivery to get the petrol and diesel out is potentially something that would be useful in Ireland. That's my own opinion. It's not a government position.
Well, as you
Um,
know, you and I met at a half EV, half drone
yes.
conference, right?
Mm,
I actually think because I listened to a speech there of a pilot in Ireland delivering McDonald's,
mhm.
um, and basically, I think delivery drones, can actually help with the decarbonisation
Yeah.
a lot
It's
in the future as well.
It is another option, I suppose. It's those no-fly zones, and the wind isn't always the friend of a drone. So, I think it is kind of understanding and learning from other parts of the UK and in Europe what has worked in the transition to EVs. On the how can you bring people along? At this stage, buying a car is obviously a luxury item for most people. So it's really getting to those people that can't afford to. How do we support them and their transport needs, and get them out of potentially a very old polluting car into a newer, not brand new, but a newer electric car that is would save them money in the long run. Is really the challenge. And I suppose the other side of that is really when the whole electricity side and the time of use tariff, which is a whole other discussion. That people need to get their head around, and it's really helping people learn about how to understand their energy use, because when you look at cars, your house, and when we get into things like vehicle to grid, vehicle to home,
Yeah,
it's a whole other ball game. And
yeah.
we're not that far away from it, but a few years time,
No,
we would hope that we're ready to be doing that kind of thing, which will help. It would just be a game changer in what your EV can do. It's not
I think
just
the Women Drive Electric at the British Motor Show last summer. They actually used a car to power their stall
mm,
while they were at the British Motor Show. So
yeah,
they were using the car as the electric source for their
yeah,
so it's
yeah,
definitely happening for sure. And actually, just on one last point, um, I think you need to buy the vehicle that suits your driving habits, right?
yeah,
So
most
I
definitely.
was considering an Citroen Ami for my
Yep,
parents-in-law, because all the only places they're going to go is the local shop and the local gym, and that's it. So they don't need anything that goes much faster than 30, because
yeah,
it'll be dangerous for them. And second
mhm,
of all, they don't need to go that far either. So
yeah.
it's a perfect vehicle
It's
for
a,
them.
yeah,
Just
it's a mindset shift, but it's kind of get the car and the battery size that is suitable for your needs. You don't need a massive battery and car if you're doing very short
exactly,
journeys.
exactly. Well, thank you very much, Ema. It's been a pleasure talking to you. It's
Thanks very
fantastic.
much.
I love that accent.
Thank you
Uh,
very much.
my accent is terrible because it's a mix of mid-Atlantic, American, German, and English. So um,
It's an eclectic mix.
it is, but at least it's not British. So
That's
anyway,
a good
thank you
comment.
very much, Eva.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
farewell. Bye.